this computer. Okay, welcome to class number 187 of Faith and Calm. Tonight, I didn't look at Facebook. I don't know what the title is again.
Let's listen. The title is The Power of Calm.
The Power of Calm.
Yeah.
The Power of Calm. Okay, good. I'm going to talk about war. As I said last week,
And
I would talk
about the power of calm.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So, what war are we talking about? So we're going to continue with, although there's a lot of it fascinating. There's too many things to talk about. I mean, you could talk about the Parsha too, but baby Moses, he's no longer grown up. But let's talk about, let's continue what we promised that we'd do last week, because I heard it was, sounded interesting. So, but first then, let's do a quick review, because that's what the Rebbe used to do. So we are in the midst of reviewing a mimer, a Hasidic discourse, said originally by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, and was handed out on the day that he passed away, on the 10th of Shvat in 1950, Tafshin Yud. And this is basically the handoff document to the next Lubavitcher Rebbe, our Rebbe, who took the mantle of Rebbe in 1 year later and realized that this is the walking papers, this is the mission statement, this is our task in the world for this generation that follows. It's very relevant today. I just look at the news every day and I say how much this is, really explains what we're supposed to be doing and what's happening around us. Well, how does that work? Now, of course, a Hasidic mimer is very lofty and very deep philosophical concepts, but it really hits home too. So that's the loftiness in this world, and we'll explain that a little bit today. So it goes as follows. Of course, we know that when God created the world, let's go back to the beginning here. What happened here? God created the world. There was a Gan Eden. It was a Garden of Eden. It was really wonderful in this world. Everything was perfect. There was no problems. Kids grew up just perfectly. There was no problems in Gan Eden. A couple of them one was born there. Cain was born there. Hevel was born there. So both of them were born there. It was really a Garden of Eden, and everything was good. But people messed up. And as the Hasidic explains, the pasuk Noah Balilos Rabos, I guess, was Balilos Hashem. God has many plans, and he also planned that there's a possibility when creating the world that there would also be, he implanted in us the ability to mess up. So actually, I think he was sort of happy that we messed up, because that gives us an opportunity to fix up the world. So they messed up and God ate them. They messed up. They ate from the tree of life, or the tree of good and bad, yeah. And they brought all this suffering on top of us. But the suffering was brought on top of us because otherwise it would have been a very boring world. Let's put it that way. So there would be no movies, there would be no plots, there would be no drama, there would be no Othello, there would be no King Lear. There would be, it would be very. So there we go.
I think still overall it would have been much better, even though you listed some a few things.
Yes,
I think. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have had King Lear. So anyway, everybody read King Lear. I like King Lear. Interesting story. So old people go crazy. So it made the world a very interesting plot, and it got worse and it got worse. But again, it started to improve with Avram Avinu and the next generations. And how did it improve? Because the mission is basically to take the folly and the stupidity and the insanity of this world and turn it into something holy. That is what the Frierdiker Rebbe says. And that's what the Rebbe explained every year for 38 years after that, explained in detail that the mission is that we have to come and we have to take the forces of unholiness and of stupidity and insanity and turn it into something holy. And that was done through the temple. The temple, we brought offerings, carbons. And the truth of what a carbon is not, that you're sacrificing something of yourself. What you are really doing is aligning yourself with the truth of the world. Because if God and truth are two separate things, we're in big trouble. God is that the definition of God is truth. Anything that is other than truth is not God, and God is the definition of truth. So when we try and get closer to Hashem, karav is the word close. We bring a carbon to Hashem. We're not sacrificing, giving away something of ourselves. What we're really doing is helping align ourselves to godliness. We have to give up some of the false conceptions. We just saw a lady, she was talking about how this war is really helping a lot of people who are amazingly, liberals, extreme liberals who wouldn't, lefties would have never have done this. I just saw an article about half an hour ago. Some guy, kibbutz, lefty, kibbutz, communist, whatever. His wife was killed. His child was killed. He's going back to the kibbutz, and he says the only solution for that, I want to go back, but the only solution is to make that place completely free of any inhabitants. That's the only thing to go for. He wants Gaza to be completely empty of any Arabs. That's his answer, which is a pretty radical statement for somebody coming from that community. But it's taking the blinders off of people. So there you go. That is realigning yourself with the idea of what is truth. There were a lot of, and that's not easy. There's a lot of false information out there and stupidity out there. And so therefore, what we have to do is fight that battle. Now, what happens? What does that mean? Because there is something called in this world what was unleashed when what happened in Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, was this idea of something called shtus. Now, what is shtus? Shtus, it means it's a Hebrew term. It's also used in Yiddish. It's also used by your grandparents. Stop being so shtusy. There you go. I went to yeshiva around this time. That's my first time. I remember I went to Morristown. There were a lot of Baalei Teshuva there. They had a lot of issues. There were people screaming in the hallways at 2 o'clock in the morning, Kriya Shema Lamita, the prayer that you before you go to bed. I mean, it was a little nuts kind of place. People were getting rid of. And when this season came around for the first time, I remember the Bachram. He loved this mimer. I heard it everywhere, every table. It was like with such joy, with enthusiasm, talking about, how, sometimes you know better and you find yourself doing an idiot thing again. So it really resonated very much. It resonated a lot that we wouldn't. It says that even a woman who commits adultery, she would never do it unless some sort of a momentary insanity came over her, and she did something like that. And the same thing with a guy. I mean, it really, though, so it says, the Gemara says that nobody does a sin unless a spirit of folly comes over themselves, because basically, God only wants your good, and he gives you a blueprint and a direction of what you do. And you know what? On a personal level, we sometimes, the speaker's only talking, I mean, not the audience, but some of us go to the refrigerator too often, and a lot of other things. It's insanity, it's not normal, and we know better, and yet we still see that we still do it. And that is hard to fight, You can't logically reason with it and argue with it. If you have the example that I heard Rabbi YY give today, sometimes you get into an argument with one of your teenage kids, and you try and give them good reasons, like you can't keep that kind of schedule, you'll never get a job, and you'll never get married, and nobody will want you, and and you start giving this whole reasoning, and it doesn't go anywhere because you're on a completely different wavelength. He doesn't want to hear you. You're giving arguments that make a lot of sense and a lot of reasons. And that's good for somebody who's your business partner, but but the teenager doesn't relate to that. So to deal with shtus, to fix it, cannot be done in a way of reason. You can't just apply more reason and more logic and more lectures in order to fix it. In the mimer, it says the following. It says, the beams of the temple, which made the walls, which made basically the whole structure, were called krashim. And they had to be made out of Atse Shittim. Shittim, the Rebbe points out, is the word also for shtus. It means in English they call it acacia wood, but it means you make from shtus, you make from the idiocy the temple for Hashem. What does that mean? It means you have to take the shtus, which means doing something lower to the side of intelligence, lower than how you understand it, and you have to make it straight up. That's what the karashim, the boards of the temple were. They were straight up, and to make them up, you have to tilt them the opposite direction. You can't get there without going, if you keep going this way. So sometimes the answer to the whole problem of shtus is that you have to go beyond beyond your seichel, which means what? Not just doing what is normally logical and more in your service of Hashem, but just saying, I have to go beyond. I have to serve Hashem because I'm a Jew, not because I understand it, not because I agree with everything, but I want to be close to God, and I am willing to throw myself into the thing completely. Yeah, and it's not, you can't really explain it to anybody because you're not doing it completely because it's rational. But you know what? You know that's who you are, and that's what you got to do. So the word for Kaddish, as I pointed out last week, the same letters, Kuf, Shin, Resh, mean the same letters in the words sheker, shin, kuf, resh, lies. The way to fix the lie is to turn it the other way, to deal with the lies of the media, to deal with the lies of the world, to deal with the stush of the world, to deal with the insanity of the world. You have to go to the other length. And if you want an example from contemporary what's going on now, you just look at the Jews in Israel. They're not serving in the army because they like pita and falafel, or they like the prime minister, or they think that, Gaza would make a great resort and therefore we have to capture it because there's a lot of beachfront property there. It's not a logical thing to do. They're doing it above logic. They're doing it because it's the right thing. And I can't really explain it, but we just got to do it. We just got to do it. That is a shtush the Luma said. That's a shtush of holiness. There are women that get on the radio and they talk about, their kid fell in the battle, and they're so, not that they're happy, but they're proud. They're proud. They're proud even sometimes that their kid got shot by another soldier in a friendly fire situation. And yet they feel that they have to somehow give strength and encouragement to the soldiers who are still doing it.
No, the soldiers who did it.
The soldiers who did it.
Yeah. Well, accidentally.
Accidentally.
Mm-hmm.
That does not fit into a logical box. That's not a mathematical equation. That is the connection to other Jews. That is the connection to our mission. That is the connection that goes beyond any reason or any particular logic. That is the Shtush Lamasa. And the people who do this are specifically, as it says in the Mimer, the Tzivos Hashem, the army of Hashem. The Jewish people right now are the army of Hashem. There are Jews coming to defend their Judaism. They're protesting in New York against all the anti-Semites and so forth. They're coming out of the woodwork, and they say they came to the rally and so forth. And it's not it's not a reasonable thing, because there's different kinds of soldiers in this world. There are soldiers that go into the war with their guns, but there are everybody else who's fighting this battle, and we're all fighting this battle. So we're all part of the Tzivos Hashem. We're all part of the army of Hashem. And the Jews were first called the Tzivos Hashem when they left Egypt, when we became a nation. So here we are, we're reliving the idea of going out of the first exile, which is connected to the last exile, which is the coming of Mashiach. And it's all about being in the army of Hashem. What we are right now facing is you have to be a soldier. And a soldier does not do things because they make sense. He does it because I have to do it because I'm a soldier. And that's it. It's it. You can't argue with it because it doesn't have an argument. You can bring an argument, yes, maybe no, something you can argue one side or the other. But when you're dealing with unreasonable connection, there's no argument anymore, just as you can't argue with idiocy, insanity that's lower than logic. So this is the battle. This is who we are. We are the soldiers. And that is what the Frierdiker Rebbe said. This is our time. This is our generation. That's our mission. That's what we're going to have to do. And it's so much more. It's so much connected with this era of coming to the last seventh generation, the generation of Mashiach. So this is our mission. And who fights this battle? And who fights this war? Well, first off, you have to have a commander. That's God, obviously. It's also the leaders of the generation. And it says about when a king goes to war, he can go to war for one of two reasons. The first reason that he can go to war is to help conquer because he needs more land. He needs his safety. He needs, the nation needs something. That is a limited, rational, logical war. You only go so far for that because if you're losing, and you're not gaining anything, you quit. Like King George with the United States in the Revolutionary War. America was going to be the future of England with all the resources and the whole continent and everything else. So it made a lot of sense for them, and they were making a good deal. They were making a lot of money off of the Americans. So when they taxed them, they were losing money, and you're not paying our taxes. You should. So it made a sense to go against the war against America. But the more they lost and the more they had to send more of their soldiers here and the more they put the rest of the country in danger and the French started messing in and taking advantage of the whole situation. And it's a long way to send soldiers and there was no way they were going to win. They eventually just gave up because it was becoming more expensive to try and suppress America than to give up. So they gave up. They gave up. That is a logical war. But there's another kind of war, which means one for self-existence and self-preservation, where the king says, I'm not a king anymore if I can't be the king of my own country anymore. At that point, the king puts everything on the line. And that's also what we're seeing right now. An interesting time, an interesting experience, that the king puts everything on the line. The king puts himself in danger. The king takes the money, the treasures that he has stored away, all the riches of the country, not only the things that he puts in his treasure house, but even those that his forefathers did. If you've ever been to the Tower of London, or you've ever been to the Hermitage Museum in Moscow, you see that they have crown jewels, and they have them for generations and generations and generations. There was a story I heard. So there was a yeshiva bacher. He went to the Tower of England, and he was the woman there was giving the tour. And he happened, he was a bacher. So he asked, he was getting involved in, business. He said, how much money are these things worth? The lady almost had a heart attack. So he said, you must have some number. How much do you insure this stuff with? That was it. She was like crazy. These are priceless. You can't put a price on these things. We can't insure them, So there are things that are just so much more. And the king, when it comes to the war, gives those things away too. He spends that. And he gives it to his officers, to give it to his soldiers, and the soldiers then fight the battle. And then the king puts his life on line. Now, in the Maimar for this year, the Rebbe explains there's a spiritual equivalent in this battle here. We're fighting a spiritual battle, an intellectual battle, an emotional battle, an argument about what is the mission of humanity and what is the mission of the Jews. So the treasures that God is giving to us right now are amazing treasures that were never given to any generation before, and it's the ability to accomplish the battle, because the people who fight on the front lines, who are experiencing this battle, who are who are dealing with the insanity of the world, who are actually turning things over, they are be giving miraculous capabilities and talents inside of themselves that they never saw before. As you see many times with soldiers who are in the thick of the battle, and they all of a sudden find themselves in an impossible situation, and they got to save their men. And you know what they do? Amazing things. And they say, it wasn't anything me. I just had to do it. I didn't even think about myself. I just ran into that building and I shot everybody in there because there were some of my people were inside of there. That's but that's what the capability that we're given in this time, the ability to accomplish much more than we normally as little people, but we are just little foot soldiers. We're just the pawns on the chessboard. But you know what? We do the battle, and because of that, it's all about us. The king's officers don't win the battle. You sit in the behind the front lines, way in the back of the back. What?
Not our king.
Not our king. Yeah, our king. But the officers don't. So we are the ones who have to fight the battle, and he gives us treasures. He wants to give us treasures. So when we stand up and we do what we need to do, God is going to bless us, bless each and every one of us with tremendous, tremendous success in every one of the battles that we do. And what are those treasures like? So I have maybe 2 or 3 minutes left. I think I'll continue with this. So he says there following. One is, you have to know that this treasure, this is what we're talking about in this year and last year. We're talking about it that first off, it says in the Zohar that it says that the Or Ein Sof, the light of God, can be found lamala ad ein gates, lamata lamata ad ein tachlis. That the light of God is higher and higher than you could possibly believe. In other words, there's more spiritual riches that you could possibly understand. But it also, there's the same light goes down, down, down into the lowest parts of the world. What does this mean? It means that godliness is everywhere. No matter how bad things get and how stupid things are, God has set it up so that there is the potential of holiness in that opportunity, in that world, that situation too. In other words, you can mess up and you can think of yourself as a hopeless case, and God is there with you. He is there with you, not just standing around. He's not isolated from the world. He's not far away from you. He comes down into this world and not here to suffer together with you, but to be able to give you the power and the strength to be able to accomplish what you need to do in this world. He is here with you. Godliness is here. You cannot see it. You may not perceive it, but there can't be any place in this world, anything that exists in this world, which is not given life and is not given its existence from God. And therefore, there is God here too. And that's a very comforting thought. No matter how far things go and how terrible things go and what the medical issues are and whatever the personal situation is and how hopeless your relationships with somebody comes and so forth, there is godliness there. It can't exist without it. That has to be rock solid in your faith. That is what God is all about. There can't be something that messed up and God isn't in charge. So he's there with you. He's together with you. He's together with us in every single situation. And that is the theme of this year's mimer, is that, wherever you go, no matter how far, even people who do it, not only in the things that are apparently just doesn't seem to be just completely atheistic and doesn't have anything to do with God, and it's just a nice situation, even the things that seem to be opposed to God, those things are it. And the Rebbe continues and says, even people, he puts it at the lowest level, people who use Torah not for holiness, but to fight against God, to spread lies, and they claim it's a religion and they say it's holiness, and they're doing the opposite of what is godliness. Even there has to be godliness. There can't be any place that is lower than that, and there can't be any place that's not without lower than lower beyond belief, because God's light in God is infinite, and therefore God is not limited to any other place. It may be difficult, it may be hard, it may be an awful situation, but you know what? There's something there that can actually, through complete self-sacrifice, you can reach and you can overturn it, and you can make that place also into a dwelling place for God, a temple for God, and then eventually bringing the godly, making this world a place, a dira b'tachtonim, a dwelling place for God in the lowest of lowest worlds. And with that, my wife will tell us about faith and happiness. Calm.
The power of calm.
Power of calm. Calm. Is that a T?
Okay, good. Now,
You're recording, yes.
Yes, I believe, yes, it's recording.
Is
It
this a
is.
recording?
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. So does anybody want to say anything before I begin? Oh, it's not, oh, no, it's in focus. You're muted. You're muted.
I'm not doing very well.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I am very bad.
I
Very,
can
very,
see it in your
very bad.
face. I can see
Yeah.
it. Okay, so
Yeah.
you know what? I'll have my class daven for you tomorrow. Yeah. Okay, good. We now do this new thing. Before we start davening in the morning, I call it, we get into a huddle. And, like football players have to, before they have, at a tense moment in a game, they get in a huddle and they decide, what are we going to do? What's our strategy? So before we daven, we get in a huddle and we say, We're about to do something incredibly important. Davin, who needs help? What do we need to do? What do we need to focus on? So we'll focus on you. Okay, good. You're welcome. So, anyway, okay. So I'll start with the four things that I always say. Number one, that we're in a unique time. We are in a unique time. It's not passing like a in a second. It's I don't know why this thing keeps going in and out of focus. It's not passing in a second. Like time is not traveling as fast as I would like it. We're not seeing the happy ending so fast, but we know that we are in an extraordinary time, and that Hashem is. The Rebbe told us that that the redemption is unfolding, the redemption of the Jewish people that we've been waiting for 2,000. Well, what am I saying? 5,000 years. The world's been waiting for this. So 5,784 years. So, secondly, our souls were meant to be at this juncture in human history, this incredible junction. Next, we have the mitzvahs, which are our power tools to do the best we can in this time, to conquer this time, as Yehezkel Shimon said, to do the king's work. And we have the Torah, which is our guidebook. And finally, what we're doing tonight actively advances the cause of the redemption. So, anyway, my topic tonight is the power of calm. I have known this for decades. I've seen it in my own life, and I've seen it in other people's lives, and I want to talk about it because it's it's almost the answer to everything, It's so important. So I'm going to start off with a story that I must have heard more than 20 years ago. And I heard it from a good friend of mine, Miriam Lukoff. And she read it in a book of Hasidic stories. Now, I don't know if it's a parable or if it's a modern day parable or a true story, but I'll tell it anyway because it's a powerful story. In Russia, they were constantly accusing the Jews of ridiculous things, completely fabricated false things. And if some non-Jew didn't like a Jew, that was it. They just took him to court, said an incredibly ridiculous thing. The judge agreed with him, and that was the end of the Jew. So there was a Jew, I'm just going to turn off the sound maker in the back. So there was this Jew, and he went to his Rebbe because he had been accused of a terrible thing. And it was completely fallacious, completely not true. And he said, Rebbe, what am I going to do? It's a kangaroo court. I'm going to go there, and the judge is going to agree with my non-Jewish accuser, and that's it. And I'll be thrown in Siberia for 40 years, or worse. And the Rebbe said, they're accusing me of this ridiculous thing that I absolutely had nothing to do with. And the Rebbe said, I don't know how to advise you specifically. I don't know what to do, what you can do in this case, but I do know one thing. As long as you don't despair, you will have mazel. As long as you don't despair. And so the guy shows up for his court date, and the judge was a real sadist. And the judge said, listen, Jew, we all know that you're guilty. We all know it. I don't even have to give you a trial. He said, but listen, today I'm in a good mood. So I am doing something interesting. I have two pieces of paper that I folded up here. One says innocent and goes free, and the other one says guilty, and whatever the penalty was, death or Siberia for 40 years, whatever it was. And he said, and I'm going to let you choose what's going to happen to you. They're both folded up. I'm going to put them on this ledge in front of me and choose one, and maybe it'll be your lucky day. Whatever you choose, that's going to be what it is. And the Jew was a smart cookie, and the Jew knew immediately that both papers obviously say condemned. Both papers say Siberia. He's not being fooled for 1 minute. Neither one of those papers say innocent. And it's a kangaroo court. He's not being offered a choice here. And he wants to despair. Like there's no chance. He's not even going to have a court case. It's this kangaroo thing, that kangaroo court, that he's not even being given a choice. He sees through this completely. And he remembers the words of his Rebbe. And the Rebbe said, if you don't despair, it will be well with you. If you don't despair. And so as soon as he hears that, he decides, I'm not despairing. And as soon as he didn't despair, boing, he gets an idea. And he grabs one of the papers and he stuffs it in his mouth and he swallows it. And the judge said, what did you do, you idiot? What did you do? Are you all crazy, man? And the Jew said, no, Judge, I chose. I ate the one. I picked the one I wanted and I swallowed it. Whatever's left on the counter, that's the one I didn't choose. And so he got off because the one on the counter obviously said condemned. So it's just a marvelous example of when you don't despair, you will have more clarity, you will have, and more mazel. It happens to me all the time. I'm sure it happens to you guys too. It happens to me all the time when I've lost something. As long as I'm, like I'm in a rush and I lost something, as long as I'm panicking, I will not find that thing. If I stop panicking and I say, Shalom Yehudis, Hashem rewards calm, I'm not worried about this. I'm totally not worried about this. Within seconds, I find the thing that I've lost, the thing that's so crucial. So anyway, it's also interesting that modern medicine is now full of this, that calm is powerful, calm is curative. Lately, I've been dealing with thyroid issues. If anybody knows a great thyroid doctor, you can recommend it. But I've been dealing with thyroid issues, and it's interesting. So what is the latest in thyroid? The latest is that that thyroid is, there's a gut. Well, thyroid is connected to your gut very much. And your gut is connected to your brain, your mood. And your mood completely rules your gut. It rules the microbiome or whatever it's called, all the lush microorganisms in your gut, which affects your thyroid, which affects everything. And if you're calm, it changes everything. So anyway, I want to tell a story, a true story that it's told by Yoel Gold, who's a great storyteller. And he's sort of like when somebody becomes known as a great storyteller, they no longer have to look for stories because people come to them and they say, I want you to tell my story online. I want you to tell my story. That's what happens to Yoel Gold. He doesn't have to research anything. People just call with amazing stories. So he felt this one was truly outstanding, and I'll tell you the story. It was a 23-year-old Jewish woman. A 23-year-old Jewish woman called him and told him her story. She said that she's an American Jewish young woman, and she had been in Israel for a while. And this story happened to her when she was in Israel. She was staying in Har Nof in Yerushalayim, and Americans sometimes don't fare well in sometimes in Israel because they're not used to the need to drink constantly, to stay hydrated. They're not used to it, and so she got herself pretty sick, and she was nauseous and dizzy and really not doing well. And she was sick on Shabbos, and then on Sunday she was a little bit better, but not completely better at all. And she got a call from a friend of hers who was not in Yerushalayim, and the friend had a business, and the friend said, "Can you help me? I need a picture of the Har Habayis. The Har Habayis is the Temple Mount. I need a picture of the Temple Mount, and I'm not in Yerushalayim. Can you go take a picture for me of the Temple Mount in Yerushalayim?" And she was feeling a tiny bit better. She was really pretty sick still, but her friend really needed it, and she was her friend's only connection to Yerushalayim. So she figured, okay, I'm going to do it. And since she's an American, she knew a little bit. She had been in Israel for a little while. She knew something about the transportation system. The friend told her, you go to Shar Shechem, and then, and then you have to get yourself to, get yourself to Har Hazeisim, the Mount of Olives. And on the Mount of Olives, you'll be able to get a picture of the Temple Mount from the exact angle that I need. So the 23-year-old friend from America, She's got the mission. She knows how to get to Shar Shechem. If anybody doesn't know, Shar Shechem abuts the old. It's one of the gates to the old city, and it is the Arab area. It is solidly an Arab area. But people go there and they get bus. It's a big bus depot, and they take buses from there to elsewhere. Even Americans, Israelis, they go to Shar Shechem. It's not inside the Arab area. It's like right outside. Well, actually, it's an Arab area right there, but whatever. So anyway, she went there and she got off her bus and she looked for another. And she needed to go to Har Hazeisim. And she sees a blue and white bus, and she figures this is the bus. This is where I'm supposed to wait, and she gets on it because blue and white is the colors of the Israeli flag. So she wasn't even thinking. She just got on the bus. An ironic thing about Israel is that the blue and white buses, even though blue and white are the colors of the Israeli flag, the Arab buses are blue and white. And the Jewish buses, the Egged buses, they happen to be red and green, which are the colors of the Palestinian flag, right? So anyway, she gets on this blue and white bus. She doesn't even think a thing about it. She's so sick. She's so nauseous at this point that she falls asleep. She falls asleep on this Arab bus. And she wakes up and she looks at her watch and it's 25 minutes later. She was supposed to get off the bus after 5 minutes. She rings the bell. She gets off the bus. She has no clue where she is. And, she crosses the street. She figures I'll find a bus stop and I'll go back in the direction I came from because I went way out of my way. But the problem is there's no bus stop across the street. This is not a normal Israeli area. She's looking around. She doesn't recognize anything. She happens to be deep in East Jerusalem, but she didn't know where she was. She didn't know that. And she's looking around. What am I going to do? There's no bus stop. What am I going to do? And so she looks, she sees that there's a settlement in the distance, and she walks towards the settlement, and she looks and she sees the houses don't look normal. This does not look like a normal Jewish settlement at all. And there are actually pictures on the wall of the houses of like Palestinian heroes with Arab writing on it, probably people who killed Jews. And the houses are in disrepair, and she's thinking, oh my gosh, I am in a completely Arab area. What am I going to do? And what am I going to do? So she starts saying Tillim that she knows by heart. She starts saying Tillim, and she's thinking, I have to get out of here, but I can't walk out of here. It's too far. I don't know where to go. So she decides, she's a smart cookie. She comes up with a scheme right away. And she says, okay, I have to do my hishtadlus. I'm saying my Tillim, and now I have to have a plan. And she decides my plan is going to be, I'm going to find the most reasonable looking house. Maybe she said she saw a house that had a front lawn that was actually a lawn. It was taken care of, and it didn't have any of those Palestinian heroes on the wall, on the outside wall. And she thought, I'm going to go there, and I'm going to tell them that I'm an American student. She knew Hebrew. She's not going to use any Hebrew. She's only going to speak English. I'm an American young woman. I'm a college student at UCLA, and I'm doing a doctoral thesis on the poor Palestinians and how downridden they are and how Israel is so wrong. And I'm here to interview them and to build their case. And so she knocks on the door, with this whole alibi, and meantime, davening to Hashem that Hashem should help her. And, she figures she'll befriend them and then they'll tell her how to get out of there. And so she knocks on the door and the door opens and there's a 19-year-old Arab girl, a young woman in complete Arab regalia, complete hijab, whatever it's called. And she looks at the Israeli girl, she looks at the American Jewish girl outside, and the American Jewish girl, let's say her name was Hannah, and the Arab girl opens the door and she says, Hannah, and Hannah doesn't know what she's talking about, and she was she wasn't even going to use a Jewish name, she was going to whatever, and the girl goes, Hannah, Hannah, you came to me? And then she says, and and suddenly she recognizes who this 19-year-old Arab woman is. And she said, and Hannah had been working. She ran an event, like a 2 or 3 week long thing for Aisha Torah in the King Solomon Hotel, several weeks back. And while she was there, Hannah had she was an unusual young woman. And she decided that everybody who helped her at the hotel, every service person, every bellboy, every every waitress, every cook, she was going to write down their name and write down something, some quality they have, their interests in life, something like that. She was going to talk to them. And at the end, um, she was going to send them all thank you notes because she wasn't rich enough to give a gift to each one of them. So by the end of her time there, she had accumulated 50 names. And on the last day, there was a young Arab girl, a young Arab woman that she'd never seen before. And she was pouring coffee for everybody at the event. And so Hannah befriended her and she said, "What's your name? What are you doing? What are your interests?" And she said, "Actually, I'm interested in being pre-med, but I don't have a lot of money yet. And so I'm working at any job that I can get in order to pay for my schooling." And so Hannah wrote down her name, took down her information, and at the end, she was one of 50 people who got thank you notes from Hannah. And the girl, when she opens the door, she said, "Hannah, you took up my offer to come see me." And she thinks that Hannah came specially to see her. And she brings her into the kitchen where all her Arab family is. And she said, "My friend Hannah from King Solomon Hotel came to visit." And a lot of them also worked at the King Solomon Hotel. So they said, "Hannah, it's you," because she knew a lot of them from there. And so after she talked to them for 15 minutes, she said, "I have to go home. Can you show me where the bus is?" And they said, "Oh, there's no bus now." And I have to tell you, one reason there was no bus, it was the first night of Ramadan when all the Arabs are home eating because they've been fasting all day. And so that's why there were no buses. There was nothing on the road. And so the uncle of this young woman, the young Arab woman, said, "Don't worry, I'm going to take you back. I'll take you all the way to Shimon HaTzadik. Don't worry." And they took her back to Shimon HaTzadik, and she made it home. And the point of the story is that when you don't despair, you get better ideas. When you don't, like the guy who thought to eat the second piece of paper in the first story that I told, and like this story, Hannah came up with a great plan. In the end, Hashem just saved her, just like that. Hashem just made a miracle for her. But whether it's through the fact that when you're calm, you think better, or Hashem just opens new channels of blessing. But calm is an amazing thing. And I didn't bring it. Oh, I didn't bring it. I even made 2 posters for you. In the many, many years ago, I used to panic over things. Many years ago, I had so much, whatever. We always have so many problems. Every single person has so many problems. But I made up a mantra for myself that calm. First, I'll do panic. Panic, Panic. What are those Rosh Tevis for? What are those the initial letters for? Pulling away now. In panic. No, in crisis. Panic is pulling away now in crisis. You're pulling away from Hashem because you're in crisis. And you're going the opposite way from Hashem. You're pulling away from him. You don't trust him anymore. And what is calm? Calm is CALM, and calm is centered and laughing more. And we all know this truth. It's not a chiddush. It's not a novelty. Everybody knows. Even the medical world knows it, but we forget, and we need to be reminded more and more and more. So I have plenty of problems right now, and I'm applying calm and order. That's what I'm applying to all of them, and I hope to have good news to report. So anyway, with that, I'm going to thank everybody, and I'm going to I'm going to turn off the recording and take any questions that you might have.